Okay, time for a quick quiz. Can you guess the brand of this car? If you guessed Genesis, you guessed correctly and you get a gold star and maybe a Paw Patrol sticker thrown in there too, and my admiration, unless of course you read it in the title, in which case you're disqualified. If you were feeling a little bit stumped, well, I don't blame you, because Genesis is pretty new on the scene. So here's everything you need to know about the new Genesis GV60. It's interesting this, isn't it? Now, there are quite a few new car brands popping up to really challenge the status quo. Everything from Polestars to Ora Cats, Rivians to Genesiseses? Genesii? Well, anyway, big question is new blood a good thing, or should we stick to the established big names, the names that we know and love? Well, I don't really know the answer to that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And while you're there, do like and subscribe, please. Genesis is a brand that's the posh upscale version of the Hyundai/Kia megacorporation. And it's actually been building its own cars since about 2015, however only entered the European market last year. So there've been a couple of saloons and SUVs with internal combustion engines already launched, but the GV60 is the first pure electric effort from the company. And it promises plenty. They've basically taken the best bits from the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai IONIQ 5 and wrapped it up in a posher package. Now, they're two cars that we really like, so this bodes well. And the GV60 follows the same path as the other two brands. There's a rear-wheel drive-only version, that's the slowest, but has the most range, called the Premium. A version with all-wheel drive and two motors, that's a bit faster, called the Sport. And a properly fast one, like this, called the Sport Plus, that turns up the power and gets the least range. They all have a 74 kilowatt-hour battery, very fast charging, and styling that people seem to either love or hate. But one thing it's definitely not is boring. One thing it is though, and that is big. It's bigger than it looks in the photos. I was quite surprised by how large it is. Quite chunky, bit of extra weight around the hips perhaps. Similar proportions to the Kia EV6. It's a 5-door small SUV with this coupe roofline. The front gets a wide and largely redundant grille. There's no engine in there, don't forget, plus double stacked headlights on top. Both of those features being common to Genesis cars. Then there's a kind of swoopy body with this odd little chrome kink in the silver strip that runs across the top of the windows. Not entirely sure about that, but again it is interesting. The back is similarly streamlined with a stubby rear spoiler and possibly, how do I put this, a bit podgy looking? I'll leave you to make up your own mind about whether you think it's good looking or not, but I am sitting firmly on the fence. So getting off the fence and into this seat is much better because just take a look around. Wow, there is a lot going on here. I mean, this is basically the polar opposite interior of the Tesla. So many buttons. I mean, just where to even start? Actually, I'm going to start with the screens because 2 screens up front, 12.3 inches. This one is obviously all the information you need for driving. This one is the touchscreen, packed full of information. A couple of things that I really like. One is this setting here called quiet mode. Now the beauty of quiet mode is it means that the radio or media, whatever you're playing, is only played in the front seats and the volume will be turned down in the back. So for those that have got kids fast asleep in the back, that is a lovely mode to enjoy while driving. The other thing I really liked is this. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I do a lot of driving and all my brilliant ideas, genuinely they are brilliant, come to me while I'm driving. Or maybe I think of things I need to do, my to-do list, what I haven't done. There is a voice memo setting. So literally, you can quickly and easily leave yourself a voice note. Today, I remembered on the way here, remember to buy Orlando a life jacket for the weekend. That is a genuine requirement. Stop that. My memo is stored and I will remember to do that when I get home. Ta-da! We have a few physical buttons along here. This is where all the climate control settings are, but it's always nice to have a few extra physical buttons. And then, if, like myself, your childhood dream was to become the next Mystic Meg, well, Genesis have made that dream come true. Because you might be watching the gear selector here. However, that's because the car is switched on. If I have the car switched off, it turns into this stunning crystal sphere. It's interesting, I agree. This is supposedly a safety feature. So when the crystal sphere is on display, it means the car is switched off. And when the car is switched on and ready to go, and then of course you can select which gear you need. It's an interesting feature. A bit unnecessary? Probably. Although there is something quite mesmerising by the crystal sphere. Interesting. As for toys, all GV60s get plenty, with the more expensive models unsurprisingly getting more of them. Interesting options include a Bang & Olufsen stereo that's a bargain at £990 and a panoramic roof that'll set you back just over £1,100. But it makes the cabin feel way more airy and spacious. It's all beautifully put together, but some of this silver trim just looks a bit over the top, especially the buttons on the wheel. Now, do you think that's enough for a car that costs £65,000 without any options? I'm not totally convinced. Still, the seats are really supportive and very comfortable, and the infotainment system is slick and quick to react. As for the back, there's a flat floor, but not quite as much headroom compared to something like the IONIQ 5, thanks to that coupe roofline. And the boot isn't huge for the size of car either. It's still pretty big, with 432 litres up to the height of the rear seats, 680 full to the roof, but it gets beaten by cars like the Tesla Model Y. And yes, there is a frunk, happy face, but in an all-wheel drive version like this one, it's only 20 litres, which is just about big enough for your charge cable. Right, so we're in the flagship GV60 Sports Plus, and I've got to say, it's pretty nippy. I can get from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 4 seconds. It's also got 430 brake horsepower most of the time. However, if you want to do a cheeky little overtake, then you've got this, the boost button. That's going to give you an extra 52 brake horsepower for 10 seconds. Love it. This is literally like bringing Formula E's fan boost into the real world. So let's give it a go. Press and go. I mean, it's completely pointless, but really quite fun. And let's remind ourselves of the number plate of this car. It is important to embrace the fun of driving once again. Love it. It also has a special drift mode, like the Kia EV6 that Wookie was actually driving recently. If you haven't seen that video, it's been a popular one. I would highly recommend it. It's rather amusing. But let's be honest, I'm not going to be doing any drifting on public roads, so I might be missing the point here, but are any owners going to be using that feature either? Probably not. It's not your average track day car. But you know what, aside from all the headlines, this is a really lovely car to drive. Genesis has put a lot of work into making the GV60 serene, and it really does show. Now clearly all electric cars are quiet, but just because there's no engine noise doesn't mean they're completely silent. You know, you've still got things like tyre roar, wind rush, all sorts going on. So the GV60 addresses this issue. So it comes with extra sound deadening and even noise cancelling tech. And that actually works exactly the same way as your noise cancelling headphones would. And trust me when I say it works, it really does. Just listen. Great, so clever. But if silence isn't your thing, well, you can actually pipe in a variety of fake noises via the active sound design feature. Let's take a little look and have a little listen. Okay, so now I'm in active sound design. I've clicked on the enhanced mode, and within the advanced setting, I've chosen the G engine, which you can hear is quite a sort of deep bubbling noise in the background. Let's change it now to futuristic. Quite a high-pitched, squeaky violin noise, I would say. Futuristic is not for me. Let's try the electric. Electric motor, I suppose, is more what we're used to, but it's, again, quite a high-pitched whistle. I don't like any of them. I'm going to just switch them all off. So having tried out all the different options of the active sound design, lovely gimmick, but for me, much better. Silence. Then there's the ride comfort, which is actually really impressive, even on the 21-inch wheels. Probably something to do with the predictive suspension. It actually reads the road ahead and then adjusts the damping to make it as smooth as possible. Really nice feature, and you really do feel the difference in the drive. The steering's quite light, but it's set for comfort rather than sportiness, I think. And it feels like the GV60 has really been set up to be a rapid grand tourer rather than a sports car, which I think suits this car. And it's got paddles for brake regeneration behind the wheel, which is always an added bonus. A big strength of the GV60 has to be the charging ability, because it shares the same amazing architecture as the IONIQ 5 and EV6. That means 233 kilowatt DC charging and 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes on a big enough public charger, adding about 155 miles of range to the 74 kilowatt hour battery. Now that's about an hour and 13 minutes on a more common 50 kilowatt charger, or just under 12 hours flat to full on a home wall box. Oh, and there's 11 kilowatt AC charging for the odd top up. All three versions get the same battery, and the single motor premium car gets the most range at 321 miles WLTP. Then the Sport at 292, and the Energetic Sport Plus with 289. Respectable, if not groundbreaking. Besides the car, the interesting thing with the Genesis brand is the buying and ownership experience. Instead of having to go to a showroom and hassle with a salesperson, Genesis offers a personal assistant who will steer you through buying and owning. Prices are fixed, and all test drives will be done from specific brand centres or at your home rather than traditional dealers, with servicing carried out at strategically placed Genesis workshops. Mind you, because customers will actually have their cars collected and returned when it needs a service, you won't even have to worry about that. So the GV60 is a really promising start for Genesis' first go at a pure electric vehicle. It's built on some cracking hardware. There are a few weaknesses in some areas, but overall it promises to deliver a hassle-free electric drive. One thing to bear in mind is the price tag. £71,500 for this particular car, which is actually only £4,000 off the Porsche Taycan. The big question though, would I purchase this, or would I go for a Kia EV6 or a Hyundai IONIQ 5 and keep the change? Well, let me consult my crystal ball, because I think there might be a video coming up soon. And if you do want to watch that video, keep an eye out on electrifying.com so that you know when we do decide which one is best. Comparisons are incoming.